Merry bloody April, everybody. I hope this fresh new glorious month is treating you with all the love and respect of a horny mastiff enjoying some alone time with its favourite cushion. We're only a few days into April and already I'm done with it, frankly. Like just a couple of days back, I managed to gash my bald head open by, and I'm not even joking here, attempting to open a pouch of cat food. I wasn't even drunk at the time either, just horrendously hungover. So those are basically my two binary states. And here's a fun game you can play along with at home. You can try and guess which one I am right now. And then of course there was the usual April Fool's Day japery, which can absolutely climb right into a burning dumpster before being pushed into the sea and shot with a missile. Although I've got to say, this year a couple of the phone related ones actually caught my eye. Not because they were particularly rib tickling, but because I want them to actually exist. So let's check them out after the usual hot bit of wee jingly action. Techspert Weekly! So one of the very first April Fool's releases that trickled through was from Oppo, who fake launched a phone with a pop-up perfume dispenser, and this somewhat resembles the old pop-up selfie cams from back in the day, which I genuinely miss. Partly because they meant you didn't have a camera orifice intruding on that display, and partly because it meant I could crack loads of effortless erection gags in the reviews. And also, instead of filling this thing with perfume, I would absolutely empty it out and use it like a high-tech hip flask for sneaking whiskey into otherwise dry events. Of course, it might look a wee bit weird when I start enthusiastically sucking on my smartphone halfway through a boring conference. You know, that's a risk I'm willing to take. OnePlus also had a go with its R12D12 AI device, which just looks like one of your mum's love eggs but with a built-in camera. But the pair that really got me going was the Nothing Phone 2A Micro and Sony's Xperia 5 Mark V Micro. And this dinky duo are exactly what they appear to be, proper compact versions of Nothing and Sony's latest blowers. And the fact that these gloriously mini smartphones are supposed to be some kind of joke now kind of sums up where we're at in 2024, where basically every single smartphone has to be bigger than Godzilla's f***ing codpiece. As someone blessed with small hands and small pockets, and small everything if we're being perfectly honest here, the thought of a proper compact device fills me with so much joy that I'm practically firing rainbows out of my arsehole. Seriously, if I get any more excited, my Y-fronts will look like Willy Wonka's imagination room. And like just last week on the show, I was fondly reminiscent about Sony's excellent Xperia Compact smartphones as a tear rolled gently down my cheek. And these tiny heroes boasted the same superior specs as Sony's full-sized flagships, but with god-level hand feel. Even the skinniest of skinny jeans could happily hold this miniature beast, the Xperia XZ2 Compact, which was Sony's final foray into proper weenie blowers way back in 2018. 2018, what a time, back when Corona was just a crap drink that you pushed bits of fruit into and James Corden was still thousands of miles away in bloody America, and life overall was just that little bit less wank. Since then, Apple has killed off its mini iPhones, and Asus broke my heart by launching the ruddy massive Zenfone 11 Ultra without any sign of an actual regular Zenfone 11, which means that the only proper compact smartphone that's really launched in 2024 is Samsung's Galaxy S24. And even then, it's a 6.2 incher, which is stretching the term compact to its very limits. It's kind of like saying that Keir Starmer is a charismatic and sexually desirable politician, just because his main competition is a sinister hobgoblin who you certainly wouldn't trust as far as you could throw him, because even a small child could probably throw him quite far. And the only other small phone that I've reviewed this year is the Xiaomi 14, and that's almost 6.5 inches, so yeah, the situation is rather bleak, certainly for stunty-fingered folk like myself. Now all I want is a pocket rocket that I can yank out and play with in public without ending up on yet another government register. Is that really too much to ask? Anyway, let us know your own thoughts on these April Fool's Day japeries down below. And stay tuned for my roundup of the best mini phones that you can bag yourself in 2024, which has proved an exceedingly difficult video to put together and may indeed include quite a few phones that are a year or more old. That should be going live next week, but definitely be great to hear your thoughts on these phones, and would you be overjoyed if these Sony and Nothing mini blowers did actually exist? And now it's time for the part of the show that certainly isn't big and it definitely isn't clever. It's viewer comments. Viewer comments. And let's start this week with the Pyman66. You read Pyman, who says, "Hi Mr. Spurt, I'm really upset with this week's effort, you and everyone else buddy. The lack of respect you show to the Christian faith along with your ignorance of Christian celebrations is really disappointing. It's almost as if Santa dying on that cross means nothing to you." I did always think it was a wee bit shitty of Rudolph and the rest of the reindeer crew that they didn't swoop on down and rescue the poor old jolly bastard. The Big Daz 1972 says, "Before I watch, do you say shenanigans? If so, I'm not watching it." I mean, does me saying it just then by reading out your comment count, or are we all good? I'll tell you what, I'll try and go the rest of the video without saying shenanigans. I honestly can't remember if I've already said it before now. If so, I obviously deeply apologise. But yeah, rest of the show, guaranteed shenanigans free zone. Matt Sidford says, "Chris, you need some sunshine, mate. You look like one of those guys from Mad Max Fury Road." Yeah, you're bloody telling me, mate. I'm so pale, I'm practically see-through. You really gotta love this British weather. Bloody April and still freezing cold and permanently grey and nasty. Honestly, it seems like the rare instances I do actually emerge from this bloody studio, I'm in greater danger of catching pneumonia than I am of actually getting any semblance of a tan. John Paul Graham says, "I'd vote for you, Uncle Spurt." This was being referenced to me running for Prime Minister. And honestly, that would absolutely not be a good idea. But very kind of you, but seriously, I couldn't even organise a piss-up in a brewery. Mostly because I just drink the brewery dry before anyone even turns up. But it probably is true that I couldn't screw things up any worse than the current hot stream of piss that's in charge, so there's that. Anyway, before this is in serious danger of turning into political spurt, let's progress, shall we? Iramiji says, "Great to know from your A55 unboxing and numerous other videos that you know as much about old British comedies like Father Ted and Blackadder as I do. Rest in paradise, Dermot Morgan and Rick Mill. Absolutely both proper geniuses. I grew up on stuff like that and Bottom and Young Ones, hence I have a certain fondness for knob gags." Nicholas Train Becker says that Winnie the Pooh bit was completely unhinged. Cheers, bruv. Yeah, I'm yet to see a Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey Part 2 in the cinema, but I'm sure it's an absolute banger. At least it looks like they actually spent more than a tenner on props and stuff for this one, because that owl costume looks pretty badass, to be fair, even if it looks in no way like an actual owl. Not so sure about the Tigger one though, gotta say. It kind of looks like one of those dudes who dresses up like an animal, furries. One of those guys after a prolonged and particularly invasive assault from a horny fox. And apparently they're doing even more of these slightly unhinged Disney horror reboot efforts as well. I think the next one's a Bambi one, Bambi the Reckoning. I'm assuming the plot of that one is basically him getting revenge on a whole bunch of hunters by strapping chainsaws to his horns and headbutting the shit out of them. And he's hoping that the next one is like an Aristocats one. They could do it like home invasion style-y. Bunch of miscreants break into a mansion, hoping to get up to a bit of mischief, and then they get systematically bumped off one by one by the psychotic moggies living within. I mean, bollocks to it, I got a couple of cats, I could shoot it myself. And the subject of last week's video was, of course, the Samsung Galaxy S24 Fan Edition, so we've got lots of Samsung FE chat. Jim Bob says, "Seeing as this is the so-called Fan Edition, what fan wants a shonky half-baked chipset?" I will say in Samsung's defense that the Exynos 2400 was better than I expected. Things ran pretty well on the S24 Plus with Genshin Impact and all of that. But yeah, the regular S24, that one got a wee bit toasty. Definitely not as good. So yeah, it's kind of a shame we get stuck with the Exynos still. Boo. Chicken and Shrimp says, "Did you try the S23 FE with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1? It was a way better experience." And similarly, David Golick says, "S23 FE with the Snapdragon Gen 1 is a really good device, now with One UI 6.1 and AI features." I never had the pleasure of trying out that Snapdragon model, although didn't the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 get hotter than Satan's jockstrap? So I'm not really sure if Samsung managed to sort out the thermal issues for that one. Fabian Endra says the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 would be great for the S24 Fan Edition. And Kim Bong Uno says, "My advice to Samsung, just put in a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, et voila." Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. The 8 Gen 2 is still an absolute banger. In fact, just this week, I reviewed Xiaomi's new premium tablet, the Pad 6S Pro 12.4. It's a proper mouthful, as your mum likes to say. And yeah, that uses the 8 Gen 2 and it runs Genshin Impact absolutely fine. Multitasks with many apps at the same time. No issues whatsoever. And of course, because it's a year and a bit old now, it'll be, hopefully cheap as chips, cheap as microchips. Feeble 2009 says, when are you reviewing the Perfect Draft Pro? Yeah, when that first came out, I was very tempted to order one in to, test it out and everything. And then I realized I'm just a massively lazy so I'm never gonna actually order in the massive beer kegs and, get it all set up and everything. No, when I can literally go to the fridge, pull out a can, crack it open, and there you go. Plus, when it comes to actually pouring pints from a tap, I'm about as competent as a blind orangutan with no thumbs. So yeah, drinking straight out of a can, definitely the best strategy as far as I'm concerned. And also these days, I do quite enjoy just trying bad mental beers that I find in the supermarket, stuff like that. Aunt Bessie's custard and whatever the it was. I mean, admittedly, it was utterly disgusting, but I like to experiment. Again, much like your mum. One Charlie Line 6 says, if your phone is making your pancreas burst, then you're putting it in the wrong pocket. Duly noted. User, and then a whole bunch of letters and numbers, says, your video is boring. You should review of phone outside, not indoor. Christ, I feel like I dropped about 20 IQ points just reading that out. Yeah, fantastic feedback there, buddy. I'll certainly take that into consideration. Yeah, for my next review, I'll go stand outside in the endless piss and rain and stand by the side of the road and try and yell so you can hear me over the sound of passing trucks. I'll absolutely upgrade the quality of my videos. Oh, feel free to f*** off and watch MKBHD, or one of those guys who films themselves pretending to use a phone while stood on a grassy knoll or whatever. So you get your jollies. Better make this the last one for the week, because I've got to bugger right off. Captain America V1 says, Uncle Spurt, the newest member of the Avengers. Well, they're certainly doing enough new TV shows and movies that will probably get to me eventually. But, what's my superhero power? Like even Jeremy Renner can shoot arrows or whatever. I've got bugger all. The only thing I was ever really any good at was drinking booze. And even then, let me tell you, those powers are diminishing fast now that I've hit 40. Maybe I can just confuse the bad aliens by walking up to them and calling them a bunch of while Miss Marvel sneaks up and kicks them in the neck. Anyway, a massive thank you to everyone who commented last week, even that dumbass user guy. Please do tap your comments down below, especially if you've got any thoughts about small phones, microphones like the Sony and the Nothing. Bit of April Fool's japery. I'll smash away through as many of those as possible next week. And speaking of next week, what the f*** is next week? So next week, your Uncle Spurt is actually off to Morocco for all of 2 days for a tech-type shindig thing. It's embargoed right up the poop chute, so I can't really say any more than that. But stay tuned for some literally hot content from there, because apparently it's going to be 33 degrees or something bonkers. I was quite excited at first about potentially finally getting that tan, but frankly, as soon as I step off the plane, I'll probably just spontaneously combust. All that'll be left of me is a small pile of fillings and a handful of singed pubes. But if I somehow avoid melting into a pile of fleshy glue, then certainly next week expect more phone reviews and other nerdy tech Almost said the word I promised I wouldn't. And of course the same half-baked, potty-mouthed Techspert Weekly nonsense this time next week as well. So all that remains to be said is have yourselves a fan-bloody-tastic weekend. Plug subscribe, ding that notifications bell, all that YouTube bollocks. I'll see you on the other side. Love you!